Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on affordability of water and sewer rates and the Affordability Assessment Tool presented by the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. I'm David Tucker, a project director here at the EFC. Just a few technical details before we get started. You should be seeing a slide on your screen right now. For those of you who are not familiar with GoToWebinar, explaining some of the logistics to you. All participants will be muted, so if you have any questions, please type them into the question box on your screen. Hopefully you had a chance to look over this slide right now, which is explaining the logistics, but if you have technical questions at any point during the webinar, type them into the question box and we'll do our best to help you. And of course, if you have any questions about the content of the webinar, questions for Stacy Barraza, our chief presenter, who I'll introduce properly in a moment, or about any of our Alabama work, please type the questions into the box and we'll get back to you. The box is fairly small, so if you want to detach the box and make it larger so it's easier for you to see what you're doing there, you can click on the curvy arrow button in the upper right corner of the questions box. For those of you familiar with GoToWebinar, the raise your hand function is going to be disabled for this webinar. So again, please use the question box. And when asking a question, please state your name and water system name, which will help us to respond to you. The webinar will last for 1 hour, and we'll have some time for questions both during and at the end. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sharing slides from the presentation and the recording with you within the next week. And you should receive a link to the slide deck by email. So if there's a link on your screen or something else you really want to see and it goes by too fast, don't worry. You're not missing out. You're still going to get this by email afterwards. Once the webinar ends, you'll automatically be emailed a link to a very brief survey. Should only take you literally about 5 minutes to fill it out. Your feedback is very important to us, and we'll use your input to help us improve future webinars. So thank you very much in advance for filling out the survey, which we would appreciate. If we don't have time to answer all questions that are asked today, I'll select out a subset to put to Stacy to answer. And we will follow up offline with any questions in the coming days that we didn't get answered during the webinar. The UNC Environmental Finance Center, we are the people who say how you pay for it matters, because we're dedicated to enhancing the ability of governments and other organizations to provide environmental programs and services in fair, effective, and, of course, financially sustainable ways. Here at the EFC, we do applied research, teaching and outreach, like this webinar, and program design and evaluation. This webinar is sponsored by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. It's the fourth in a series of 8 webinars. There's 4 different topics. You'll hear more about that in a moment. And we're very grateful to Mr. Aubrey White, Ms. Samantha Sims, Mr. Dennis Harrison, and a variety of other good folks at ADEM for their active support and funding of this project. Funding for the project was provided by ADEM's State Revolving Fund. So for more information about the SRF, please contact Mr. James Daly, whose information is on your screen right now. This webinar is an outgrowth of the 2014 Drinking Water and Wastewater Rate Survey of Alabama Utilities conducted by ADEM, who collected the rate sheets and the audited annual financial reports. And us here at the EFC, we entered the data into our database, did quality control on it, made a dashboard tool that was the subject of our first webinar. And while ADEM sponsored the survey work, the dashboard itself was sponsored through an ongoing Smart Management for Small Water Systems project, which is funded by a grant from the US Environmental Protection Agency. This project started last month in July and is going on for 18 months through the end of 2015. We'll be conducting workshops around the country in all 50 states, including Alabama, and we'll also be providing direct technical assistance in any or all of these areas you see on your screen here: asset management, water loss reduction, fiscal planning and rate setting, energy management, all of those areas. If you are a small water system, meaning that you serve 10,000 or fewer people for your drinking water service, then you're eligible to request direct technical assistance for no charge to you for up to 20 hours of work by us and the other members of the Environmental Finance Center network around the country. We are one of 8 EFCs in various places working together on this project. So you can go to the link that's on your screen there, efcnetwork.org, and request online one-on-one assistance, or you can contact us here at the UNC EFC directly. This webinar is part of a series of free webinars on financial management topics for water and wastewater utilities in Alabama. Each webinar is being offered twice. This is the second time this affordability webinar is being offered this week to accommodate your schedules. You may earn, if you are a water system operator, 1.0 CEH credits per webinar topic that you attend, potentially up to a total of 4.0 credits in that topic area. We will track your attendance and email out certificates of attendance at the end of the webinar series by the end of September. For more information or to register, you can go to the link that's on the bottom of your screen there. And please note that while we are not offering webinars next week, the week of Labor Day, we will be back on the week after that, September 9th and 11th. My colleague Shadi Eskoff will be conducting webinars on rate setting using the water and sewer rates analysis model, which we have a screenshot of here. It's a great, powerful tool, an Excel-based tool that EFC has developed that allows you to put in information about your rate structures, your residential, your commercial, irrigation, water and sewer rate structures, and see how potential changes in your rates will affect your fund balances across time. I think it's a terrific webinar. I hope all of you on the call who are interested and are setting rates for your utilities will sign up and tell your friends and get them to sign up too. This time I want to introduce my good colleague, Stacy Barazer, who is a Senior Project Director at the EFC. Stacy's based out of our satellite office in Atlanta, Georgia, and is a veteran of work on environmental finance in the state of Georgia, around the country, with our Small Systems project, and in many other things that she's done for us. Stacy has a particular interest in and knowledge about affordability issues, and she is going to take it away now.
Great. Thank you very much, David, and good morning, everyone. So the objectives of today's webinar are to give some background on this issue of affordability and sort of hopefully tee it up as one of the many things that you consider when you're juggling setting rates. So we understand that there are a lot of priorities, and some of them for your particular community would be higher than this issue of affordability, but it's a growing concern, and there are a lot of good reasons to pay attention to affordability. So we'll give you a little background on that. Then we want to highlight some ways to assess the affordability of water and sewer services for your own customers. We'll mainly be doing that through a demonstration, so a live demonstration now of how to use this affordability assessment tool that was developed by the EFC. And then we will introduce some approaches to help low-income customers pay for their water or sewer bills. So while that last point is not really the main emphasis of today's webinar, let's just assume that you did an assessment on affordability and you found that there's some reason for concern. We don't want to leave you hanging. We want to give you a couple suggestions or let you know what's out there to start addressing that if it's something that your community wants to do. Okay, so on the next slide we'll see that water and sewer and their rates are often in the news. This is just a little compilation we did of recent articles in different media. And it's an important topic. After all, we need water for our survival as human beings, and we use it for a lot of different things. So it's a necessity and it's often controversial in many cases and so often in the news. The next slide actually is just sort of a placeholder for a couple poll questions we're going to ask you guys. So we've been talking for about 10 minutes here. We want to make sure that you all are engaged and we're curious about a couple things. So I'll hand it over to David to mention the first poll question. Okay, I see. Go ahead, David.
Sorry. You should be seeing on your screen already our first polling question, which is what kind of water and or sewer utility do you represent? And I see the votes are coming in, and I think we've probably given folks enough time to vote now. So let me close this poll and then share the results with everyone. Okay. And you should be...
Yeah,
go ahead.
We're seeing the results, David. Thank you very much for bringing that up. So the majority of folks on the call are with municipal utilities, and there are a few not-for-profit folks, one or two regional authorities, and a couple of folks that are not directly with a water or sewer utility. So maybe the next question. Thank you for your responses there, folks.
Okay, and you should be seeing the next question on your screen now of what size water and or sewer system does your utility operate by number of people served? And folks are voting now on that, and I think if we give them just a few more seconds, we'll have all the votes in. Okay, and with that, I'm going to close this poll and then share the results with you.
Okay, so we have only a small amount, 10% of our participants today that are from very small utilities with 500 or fewer customers being served. And then sort of a split between medium and large or very large utilities. So we have a bit of diversity here, and we'll try to cater for that as we go through the webinar. Thank you, David. I think we have one more poll question.
That's right, Stacy. We've got one more poll question, which I'm launching now. And we made it easy on you this time. It's just a true or false question about the affordability of water and sewer service is a major concern for my utility. And I see the votes are slowly rolling in here. Okay, and in just a moment I'm going to close this and then share the results of this one with all of you as well. All right, there we go. Okay, so this is interesting for most of you on the webinar. This is an important concern at the utility level, and for at least some of you, it's not as big of a concern. That's good to know. And so we'll continue now, David, with the slides. And we're going to go into the section that I referred to of just sort of background information about affordability. First of all, the first question that comes to most people's mind is, what is an affordable rate? Is it $3.50 for 1,000 gallons of water? And unfortunately, it's not very easy to define it like that. So the next slide will show some guidelines, national guidelines on affordability, and we purposely wanted to highlight that these are not definitions. You can't take any of this and say, well, I meet the 2% of MHI. MHI stands for median household income, and it's a very common way nationally that we try to get our heads around this concept of affordability and income and that kind of thing. It has limitations, however. And so that's another reason that we designed the tool that we're going to be demonstrating today. But it really is a very local issue, so affordable rates, like I said, are difficult to define, and using a blanket sort of national number can be very dangerous. It's much better to look at your specific local conditions, and we'll get an example here of how to do that. That said, these guidelines, these are just 3 of them. There are other studies out there. The Environmental Finance Advisory Board, for instance, has weighed in on some of this. Some of the guidelines are related to consent orders for combined sewer overflow systems. So there's a lot out there
literature, let's say, on the topic, but really for you to define it for your community, it needs to be a local process. On the next slide, we look at making the case for considering affordability. So maybe your utility wants to consider affordability for altruistic reasons. You just want to help people, or you care about the customers in your community. And so those reasons are warm and fuzzy, and they're valid as well. However, the utility's financial bottom line, so when it comes down to dollars, it also makes sense to consider affordability. When your customers have trouble paying their water or sewer bill, there's a cost to the utility. There's an actual, we can kind of figure out through different financial models what it will cost your utility. And here, the factors that involved arrearages, late payments, disconnection notices, terminating service for customers, and then fielding the calls from your delinquent customers, and then having to go and reconnect probably at inconvenient times when they decide that they want to catch up with their bill. So there are real sort of bottom line reasons to address this and consider it. If you're having a rate increase, for instance, some of these factors can actually increase the cost of doing business, and so you might want to factor those in. All right, at this point we are going to do a demonstration of the tool. And we'll show you a little screenshot here of what the tool looks like. And this is how you can find it. So we're trying to avoid really long URLs. If you just go to the main EFC website and you type in our search box here, Affordability Assessment Tool, this Excel-based tool should come up. So David's going to, he's going to go through that process for you right now. He's going to pull up the EFC website.
That's right, and here's the website right now. At the moment, you can see at the top of the website where it's posted here, but it won't always be that way, so you can always go to the search box and look for it there, and then you'll come to this landing page here for the Affordability Assessment Tool.
And you'll see at the bottom of that page there is a description of how to use the tool. If you don't catch everything that we showed today, you can go back and read this page in more detail. What David also mentioned, that we will record today's webinar, and that will be online as well. But it's hopefully all of that wouldn't really be needed. It's a pretty simple tool, and we tried to design it so that where you put the information in and all of that is very obvious. So I'm going to pull up a version of the tool here. In Excel, and that'll be popping up for you in a minute.
All right. Sorry for the technical fumbling here for a moment, folks. I'm trying to switch this over to Stacy's screen. I think we're there now.
Yeah, I think we have it. So this, when you click on that Excel, on that link from the website, this is what your computer is going to download. We're going to start with the instructions page, though. Again, here's another opportunity for you to figure out how to use the tool. The green arrows that sort of draw in your eyes help you move from one tab to the next, but there are only 3 tabs in here. And the yellow boxes are where you would put data in. So again, I wanted to mention that while you can download this tool and save it on your computer right now, and you continue to use it, so you can use it this year, you can save the file and name it today's date, for instance. You can go back to the tool next year when you're looking at maybe another rate increase and save a different version of it. So it helps you to keep track of different versions of the tool as your utility changes rate structures. However, remember that we're calling this version 1.0, and it was released this year. When we get feedback from folks like you who use the tool, if you have suggestions for things that we can improve, we will go ahead and create another version at some point and put that on the website. So check back, even if you have it saved locally, check back the website over time to just make sure that you have the latest version with all the bells and whistles. We're constantly evolving and trying to improve this and all the other tools that we have at the EFC. Okay, so I am going to click on the Begin Data Inputs. And we'll put in today's date, again, to keep track of the work that we're doing. Most of these fields I went ahead and completed beforehand because I didn't want you to have to sit here and look at me type all of this data in. But this is an example here of before you put the information in, it's going to be in red here that it's incomplete, kind of prompting you to put something in there. So one of the utilities that we have from Alabama who's been involved with these webinars has been the Tallahassee Waterworks. So I'm going to use them as an example today. As usual, you guys are probably used to this. Alabama's first on the list, but there are other states, all the other states actually are included in this drop-down list. So if we have non-Alabama folks on the webinar today, take heart, you guys are listed in here as well. You also have the choice of looking at water rates only, or your sewer rates only, or water and sewer combined. And today we'll leave it at water and sewer combined. Here's the decision point though. What is the approximate average residential monthly consumption for your utility? And again, that's pretty utility specific. And sometimes it's not a very definite number. It's a hard number to come up with. But we found, we used to use like 6,000 gallons per month at the EFC, and we've found that it's been reducing. I mean, folks are using less water per month on average. So let's say I talk to the folks in Tallahassee and they say, well, really 5,000 is not very representative. We think it's more like 4,500 gallons per month for our particular set of customers. So we can change that. And the rest of the tool updates, I'll show you some of the assessments in a minute, and they update based on that number that you put in here. So this is something that you want to give careful consideration. Then you put in the charge for water and wastewater for that consumption amount. Now, you guys at the utility will know, you'll be able to calculate your rates. I have to tell you, in this case, I took a shortcut and I actually went to the rates dashboard, which you'll see a slide about later on in the webinar today, and you can access that for free on our website as well. I went there and just kind of pulled that data into here. And then this is one of the really important functions of this particular tool, is that it lets you not only compare affordability for the current rates, but if you are looking or exploring a potential rate increase or some change in your rate structure, you can literally have those two rates side by side here in this analysis. So I put in some rates that maybe Tallahassee might be considering, and of course these are completely hypothetical. I didn't even talk to the folks at Tallahassee, so there is no rate increase coming, at least that I'm aware of, to make that clear. So those are the few pieces of utility information that you put in based on your rates, and then you want to click on this link here. And that takes you to the US Census Bureau's American Fact Finder webpage. And I have that pulled up already. Well, let me go back and show you this from beginning to end here. So you see the whole process. This part here is a little bit, it can be a little bit confusing because it says here to enter the state, the county, the city, town, etc. But really, it's the reverse. So you want to type in the name of the city first. And I wanted to stop here and show you. This is the way it works. As you type in letters of the name, everything that starts with TALL across the country is showing up. So I'll continue typing here, and then we've narrowed it down to one, which is Tallahassee City in Alabama. That looks like the right one. So we hit the go button. And at this point, I'll point out, too, that perhaps, in most cases, actually, your jurisdiction or the service lines boundaries for your utility may not match up directly with one of these census areas, if you will. But you choose the closest one. Okay, so then we see some popular tables popping up here. We will go click on income. And then we want to click on the first table that comes up here. And we want to pay attention also to this being 2012 American Community Survey data. So census used to occur every 10 years, and they've changed the process a little bit to sort of include interim data. And so that's where this American Community Survey comes in. It's not a complete census, it's a sample, but it's a little bit better than waiting 10 years for the next census to come out. So the table that we're interested in here is the select economic characteristics. We'll click on that, and that's where we were when I first started this. It's a fairly long table, as you'll see, with lots of information. We have tried in the tool to sort of keep this format in terms of the number of columns and that kind of thing, even though we're not looking at estimates in most cases, we're looking at percentages. But I'll go back to the table in a second and show you how this data input works. So here, if we look at unemployed, and we look at the percentage, it's 6.6%. So I will go back to my Excel tool here, scroll down to the table, and I'll put in 6.6%. And you'll see here, because it's not in, there's that big incomplete letting me know that I need to enter some information. Okay, and the complete has gone away now. So again, these yellow areas show you which exact pieces of data you need to pull from off the website. You enter those in, and here is the year that I mentioned. You need to put in which year as well. And now we don't have any incomplete signs anymore, so we can move on to the assessment. So these are the results, if you will. It does tell you about median household income. So it says that it's estimated, based on these numbers, that half of the households will be paying more than 1.8% of their annual income on water and sewer if everyone used the $4,500 that we put in. Now, median household income is, like I said, it's limited in some ways because it's sort of the middle number. And so there's half the population that we're looking at are paying something different, and half also are in a different economic or income category. So there's half below and half above that we're not seeing. It's sort of masking because it's just pulling this middle number. So what we did with the tool is we looked at affordability across the income spectrums. So there are several income brackets here, and we're going to focus in on the low-income customers. Is the water and sewer rate affordable for the low-income households? And we're defining low-income here as $25,000 and less per year. And we see that 36.6% of the households are estimated to have had less than $25,000 in income. And those households would have spent more than 2.28% of their income for water and sewer at this 4,500 gallons a month threshold. But perhaps more importantly, 11.9%, so almost 12% of the households will have spent more than 5.71% of their income. So that's something that you probably want to hone in on. The higher income levels are less relevant for this type of analysis. So again, this is not just showing you median, but affordability across a spectrum of income levels for the community. And then next we have a couple, I should point out here that there are, this column here represents the current rates, while this one helps you to compare it to the alternative rates that you might be considering for your utility. The same with these bubble charts, like I like to call them. So this chart here on the left, on the right is showing, hold on, let me get the mouse going here. The chart on the left is showing the bubbles for the current rate structure. And then next to it we have the rates or the bubbles for the one that we're comparing it to. And there are two pieces of information that you want to be gathering from each of the bubbles. So the size of the bubble relates to the proportion of the population in this particular income bracket. So we can go here and look at that. And then the number inside is the percentage of income spent on the bills. So here again you can see across the income spectrum, you can see how the current rate structure and the proposed one are comparing and how they affect different parts of your population, your service population. This table here also gives you more information on the estimated percent of customers that are paying at least a certain percentage of their income on water and sewer bills. And we should highlight that it's at least. So some of these customers are paying more than that level of income on their water and sewer bills. And then the last section here encourages you to consider other socioeconomic factors for your community, like poverty rate, for instance. And so we have some of them pulled in here. In terms of unemployment, folks that are on food stamps and receiving Social Security income, for instance, all of that helps to paint a fuller picture of the affordability issues that may or may not exist in your community. I'll go ahead too and point out while we're on this assessment worksheet that all throughout the tool we've tried to include links to the different blog posts. For instance, this one, if you were to click on this, it would take you to the EFC website and take you to a blog that was specifically written about using median household income data from the Census Bureau to calculate indicators. Then there is actually another Excel tool that this link will take you on. So it says to click here to download a tool that helps estimate how much it would cost a utility to establish a customer assistance program to help low-income customers pay their bill. So that's sort of, we're going to get into possible customer assistance programs and what they may look like. In the event that you do this analysis and there's concern from, by your utility about affordability, this tool will tell you what you might be looking at in terms of cost to address this and to assist some of your low-income customers. There's another blog post mentioned down here, but we'll give you a chance at the end of the webinar to indicate if you'd like to sign up for our blog post. Like I said, we will issue future updates to this tool, but it still may not include, in the interim, all the different blog posts that we write on affordability. Okay, so I think I am going to give control back to David here to move on with the slides at this point. Okay, so like we said, we wanted to give you a few tips or just talk a little bit about what steps you may be looking at if there is an affordability issue in your community. Okay, and before we get into some of these specific steps, I did want to mention that in a lot of cases, you have, well, the stories that we hear at the EFC, there's the one board member at the utility or even someone on staff that's really concerned about affordability. And they sort of have this perception or feeling that the low-income customers in the service area cannot afford the bills. And what about that one person? Or what about that really small group of people? And we've found that having some sort of an assistance program can actually open the door to a rate increase, because that's usually the number one concern that's raised when the utility says to the board or the community that we need to raise the rates to provide, to continue to provide a safe and reliable water and sewer service. And in cases where you have a response where you can say, well, we do have this program that's going to be able to help the customers who do have issues paying the bill. Sometimes it can open the door and the rate increase can get approved. So I wanted to mention that at this point in the webinar. Okay, so if we do want to develop something at the utility to to address affordability, one of the most traditional or pretty standard established approaches is this idea of a lifeline rate. And by standard, I'm referring here to the American Water Works Association's manual on rate setting for water and sewer utilities. And they mention lifeline rates. They define it as providing a minimal amount of water at a reduced cost to all customers, regardless of their income level or their ability to pay. Or some utilities have a special lower rate for senior citizens, for instance. Well, in this case, it's to all customers. All right? So that's one way to look at it. Now, often, some consumption is usually included in the base charge, and we'll move to the next slide and kind of discuss that a little bit further. So we did a survey for water and sewer rate structures in the state of Alabama. So this slide is Alabama specific. And if you look at the chart, what we're seeing here is in Alabama, the majority of rate structures, and I'm talking about over 90% of water rate structures and about 70% of the sewer rate structures, include a minimum amount of water consumption or sewer disposal with their base charges. For these utilities, the variable portion of the rate structure only takes effect when a customer uses more than the minimum included in the base charge. So in other words, all customers of these utilities who consume or dispose of an amount up to that minimum would receive the same bill, which is equal to the base charge. In Alabama, for both water and sewer utilities, we found that the median amount of allowance included with the base charge is about 2,000 gallons per month. And that is pretty similar to what we've seen in other states in the Southeast where we've done similar surveys. Sort of on the extreme here, only 2% of water and 6% of sewer utilities include more than 3,000 gallons per month with their base charge. Okay, so including some consumption is one way to sort of address the concept of are my utilities rates affordable to the customers. Wanted to mention on the next slide this concept of where is your assistance going, and sort of mention that if you aren't using full cost pricing, it's unlikely that the water users are benefiting. It's unlikely that the smaller water users are benefiting because if you're not incorporating the full cost of providing the service, and full cost pricing, I'm talking here about source water protection, even considering the cost to your utility to handle late payment, and that kind of thing. If you aren't being comprehensive in how you set your rates, the folks that are probably benefiting are going to be your larger water users in most cases and not the smaller ones. So that's something to consider if you do have some sort of assistance program, I should say. Now, there are other sources or other resources on affordability that the EFC has put together, and you'll see on the next slide we mentioned some of the blog posts. There are actually a few more that could fit on this slide easily, and we'll probably write more over the coming years. So that's a good source of what's happening on this topic. So here are examples of what we talked about so far in those blogs. And then the tool that I mentioned earlier, if you do want to design or consider some sort of customer assistance program, there is a tool that's also Excel-based that will help you to estimate what that cost to your utility might be. Another type of resource that's a little bit more detailed is Chapter 4 of this report that we did for the Water Research Foundation. So it's called Defining a Resilient Business Model for Water Utilities. And there's a chapter in there that addresses affordability sort of at the national level with some examples and case studies. And then last but not least, I wanted to mention the rates dashboard and the affordability dial. That's one of 4 dials on that dashboard. And so the next slide will show us a screenshot of the rates dashboard for Alabama. And hopefully this tool looks familiar to most folks by now. It is available on our website also for download. So we see 4 different dials here, and the one in the bottom here is showing affordability. And it's color-coded, so 0 to 1% of median household income being spent on water is coded as green, so sort of no cause for concern indication, if you will. And then when we move from 1 to 1.5% of water service only, then that's colored in yellow, meaning that it might warrant some attention on the part of the utility. And then above 1.5, we get into the red area. So that's where you might want to take some action. You know, if you're comparing this to how you drive your car and how you use the dashboard on your car and your gas gauge, that's when you probably need to make a swing by the gas station. So that's where you need to pay a little bit more attention and try to figure out how you may address possible issues. So that's another tool. And the dashboard allows you to compare these parameters to other utilities in the state of Alabama. So you can see what other folks are doing and how you line up at your utility. The next slide is pulled from another Water Research Foundation project that the EFC did not do directly, but it's very comprehensive in terms of the types of affordability programs that exist across the country. So they surveyed a few hundred water utilities and asked them to sort of categorize their assistance or affordability programs. So a lot of the utilities said that they offer some sort of payment plan to allow a customer to pay over time. So you have an overdue bill and they set you up on a payment plan for a few months or maybe even several months to get that bill paid off. Some utilities refer the customer to a private or non-utility agency to help with the bill. There also are referrals to government agencies for assistance. There's in-home conservation assistance, special billing arrangements, and then sometimes one-time bill credits from utility funds. So that just gives you a range of ideas to consider for what may or may not fit well with your utility. Okay, so the next slide here
Well, Stacy, actually, I think we have a few questions from the field, if I can put them to you right now.
Great, sounds good, yeah.
Okay, thanks. We have one attendee who asked about, will the slides be available to participants following today's session? And just wanted to let everyone know, yes, they will. Within a week, we will have the slides and hopefully a video recording of today's session up on our website, and everyone who's attending today will have emailed out that link to all of you. And then, Stacy, there's also a question about, is the dashboard updated for all states, and how recent is the information in the dashboard tool? Would you want to answer that, or do you want me to?
Sure, David. You are the expert on the dashboard, so I'll let you talk about that, at least for Alabama. And then okay. You can probably also point out that we have dashboards for many other states.
Quite right. So we have been doing dashboards for a number of years for the state of Georgia and the state of North Carolina. This is our first year doing a rates dashboard for water and sewer rates for Alabama, and we hope that will continue for a long time to come. In all three of those states, it's envisioned to be annual work, annual updates. And we're about to do an update just in the next few days here for Virginia and Arizona as well, where we do work each year with the rates dashboards. How recent is the information in the dashboard tools? It depends upon the source of the data, because it's not always the case where we are doing the survey ourselves. Sometimes we're taking someone else's rate survey and using that, and not every state has a survey done every year. Some states it's every other year or every 5 years, and there may be some states out there that haven't been surveyed at all for quite some time. We're now doing dashboards in all the states that I mentioned, as well as we have one for Texas, for Colorado. We have one for Canada. It's through a private contract we have up there, so you can only see a screenshot of it, not the entire dashboard. And we will be doing dashboards for 5 more states across the next year and a half as part of the small systems project that we described earlier. But we do try and get data that is as up-to-date as possible, like within a year, so that it can still be fresh and useful for the users. Stacy, there's also a question or two that I would like to put to you. For example, where do you find the EFC's blog from your website?
Okay, and maybe, David, I'll put you on the spot then to pull that up. So we'll go back to the website for a second, and then you'll see David is navigating to the blog, which is right there in the corner of the website. You click on that, and you can see the latest blogs. That's a good question. We mentioned the blog a lot, but didn't really see how to access it easily. So,
indeed. And Stacy, there's also a question about, do you know the dates and topics for your next set of in-person trainings or workshops in Alabama yet?
Okay, well, we don't have annual trainings, on an ongoing basis. They're sort of project specific. So with the project that David mentioned, the small systems project that we'll be doing in the next 18 months or so, we will be doing something in Alabama. At this point, we have not decided on the dates and the topics at this point. We are working with folks from the state to figure out the best topics for folks in Alabama, and that will be on our website. So you'll be seeing more about that. You can just continue to check the website, and you'll see where we have upcoming in-person events in the state.
Thanks, Stacy. And there's also a question about water and sewer rates may be lower than football tickets in Alabama. So why should we be concerned?
It's a good question. And in the case of, so on the dashboard for Alabama, there's some reference to football tickets, so you should check that out if you haven't done that yet. And then in Georgia, the reference that the state here asked us to do, so actually on the screenshot that David has up, you can see in green it says SE average 2013 football ticket prices. They are also, in the case of Georgia, they wanted us to put a comparison on the actual Georgia dashboard to cable bills. So it's very interesting to compare something like water with these discretionary uses like football tickets and cable bills. Cell phone bills would be another good one that some state would probably ask us to put on the dashboard at some point. But the concern is valid here because water, unlike football tickets or cable, is a necessity. It's a basic human need. Some folks will argue with you that they really need to have cable, but that's why we should put a little bit more emphasis on making sure that the water and sewer bills are affordable, because they're so much more important than some of these other discretionary uses. But yeah, it was a good example, a good opportunity to highlight the comparisons of football tickets and cable, and who knows what else we'll come up with for the dashboards in the future. Well, David, did you have any other questions?
Stacy, I think we do, and I think we've got time for at least one more, which is, it does not seem like a good idea for a water utility to get involved with deciding which customers to assist financially, and how would you react to that statement?
Sure, that's a good observation as well. And at the EFC, when we're asked that question, we will say that deciding on, verifying people's incomes and that kind of human service related stuff is not really in the core business line of a water or sewer utility. So we would prefer the options for assistance to customers that include working with some charitable or human service organization apart from the utility that's in your community already. There are groups out there that do know how to verify somebody's income, and that's their specialty, and it doesn't hurt a utility's image, if you will, or public relations if they partner with a well-respected charitable or human service organization in their community. So maybe making a donation to that community organization and having them decide and disburse the funds for customers who say that they have problems with affordability, that's probably a good approach. And you probably at the utility don't want to have your staff involved in checking people's income and deciding who gets the assistance versus who does not get the assistance and that kind of thing. If for some reason you can't find a partner in the community and you have to do some of this on your own, there are other programs out there. Within the tool, the assessment tool, we had different factors such as poverty rate, unemployment rate, and there was mention of food stamps, for instance. So if you have to do any of this verification or eligibility stuff yourself, tagging on or piggybacking off one of existing programs, such as if somebody brings in food stamps certification or showing you that they qualify for that program, then maybe you use that to, as the eligibility criteria for your program. But it's a good idea to step back from it a little bit and not run that program yourself if you have some sort of assistance program.
Thanks very much, Stacy. And unless there was more you wanted to say on that topic, let me just remind people about the webinar series, and then we'll launch our last couple of polling questions and let y'all go for the day. As we mentioned earlier, this is part of an ongoing series of webinars sponsored by the Alabama Department of Environmental Management. And 2 weeks from now, on Tuesday and Thursday, September 9th and 11th, if you can attend either of those, we're going to have a great webinar session led by my colleague Shadi Eskoff on rate setting using the water and sewer rates analysis model. It's an Excel-based tool that, like the affordability assessment tool, it's developed by us. It's a very powerful tool that can help you to see how changes that you might contemplate in your rate structure for water or sewer, residential or commercial, can impact your fund balance across time. And we really hope that you'll attend that and that you'll spread the word to all your friends. If you want to register, click on the link there. You can also go to our website and just go to the Alabama page, and there's a link there to register for any of the webinars in this series. And ADEM has approved for water system operators 1 CEH per topic for each of the 4 topics in the webinar series, the first one having been on the rates dashboard. We have other resources that are available to you at no cost to use. As Stacy mentioned previously, we have our blog from the UNC EFC, and it's available at the link you see on the left there. We mentioned the Smart Management for Small Drinking Water Systems project, nationwide project going from now through the December of 2015 timeframe. And if you go to the project website, to efcnetwork.org, you can find tools posted there, slides of trainings that we've performed in the past, opportunities to request direct technical assistance for your system under any of the areas of the grant, energy management, water loss reduction, asset management, and so on. And we and our sister environmental finance centers around the country in the EFC network will be driving that project forward to help out all of you small systems. Now, the most up-to-date information on what's going on at the EFC here at Carolina, you can go to our Twitter page and track our tweets and tweet yourself if you do that kind of thing. And Stacy and I have a couple of more polling questions that we want to put to you right now. And I'm launching the first one now, and it is simply, would you like to subscribe to our blog? You say yes, we will subscribe you. We will not use your email address to, you know, give it to some direct marketing company or anything like that. It's just for putting you onto our blog so that you can see what I and my colleagues like Stacy are writing about and researching about these days. And all right, seems that most folks have had a chance to respond to that. So I'm going to close that one. And then the last polling question is, we mentioned the opportunity for direct technical assistance if you're a small water system serving 10,000 or fewer people during the next year and a half. And if you're potentially interested in that, click yes. If If you're not sure, would like more details about what does that mean and is that a fit with your needs or not, you can click on that button. This would be assistance that would be provided through phone and email, and I said it's up to 20 hours of time. That'd be our time. We're not expecting you to be on the phone with us for full 20 hours, but there'd be some investment of your time to give us data and ask us questions and tell us what's important to you and what you're working on. Okay, and I think we've given enough people enough time to respond to that now. So I'm going to close that one out as well. We also have a survey through Qualtrics that if you have time right now that you could go ahead as soon as the webinar is over and answer, and it should be, the link to it should be appearing in your chat window. It should only take you about 5 minutes. If you don't have time right now, that's going to get emailed out to you later on, so you'll have an opportunity to do it that way as well. Your feedback is important to us. It helps us to get better at what we do here. So thank you in advance for taking time to do that. I want to say thank you very much to my colleague Stacy for all of the really great things she was able to show us today about assessing the affordability of water and sewer rates and the tool. And thank you, Stacy. Thank you also to Aubrey White, Dennis Harrison, and all the other good folks at the Alabama Department of Environmental Management that have funded today's webinar and this whole series of webinars. We look forward to seeing you back here again 2 weeks from now for the Rates Tool webinars, and then 2 weeks after that, and later in September for the Capital Improvement Planning Tool. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, guys.